Goodell heading out right now to make this selection known, and then the intrigue will begin with the Washington Commanders on the clock.
With the first pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select Caleb Williams, quarterback, Southern California.
The beginning of the season is the most beautiful of times for a sports fan. A time of dreams, a time of promise, a time of hope. It's a chance to reset from everything that was from the year before. All the highs and all the lows, to clear the slate and look towards the hopeful future. A fresh start where anything is possible. This is the audacity of hope. And with the first pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears have given their fans hope beyond belief. So, what are we hopeful for this coming 2024 season?
That is a loaded question. So before I answer that, let me kind of visually describe that hope, paint a picture of that draft for me and what that was like. So I was in Louisville, Kentucky, where I bought the bottle of bourbon that we just finished. And there was several other Bears fans because, you know, it was Kentucky and there's a bunch of different fans from different teams in the bar that we were at. And so we had the first overall pick. And honestly, we're all just holding our breath because we were all hoping it was Caleb Williams, but you just never know with this franchise what direction they're going to go with. Nobody expected Mitch Trubisky in 2017. And then when they said Caleb Williams, it was just like a huge sigh of relief. I literally stood up and screamed, "We didn't fuck it up."
Were you in a bar?
I was.
Yeah.
I screamed, "We didn't fuck it up." And I ran around the bar, and all the Bears fans were just high-fiving. Even though we knew this was going to happen, we were still 1% thinking maybe this won't, right?
Yeah.
And that's your audacity of hope is you expect something to happen or you hope something to happen, but in the back of your mind, you kind of know that maybe it won't, and maybe you have to prepare yourself for something else. But I think the audacity of hope is something that every fan has to have before going into the season, right? Otherwise, why even watch it all?
Yeah.
You know, you go into this season with a mindset of you're drinking the Kool-Aid, right? Everything's better than it was before. We got rid of that guy that didn't work out. We replaced this guy on the coaching staff. We upgraded at this position. And, you know, for the Bears, they've had some really bad seasons, but for the most part, like we talked about in the previous podcast, they're just like stuck in this mediocre gobbledygook, right?
Yeah.
They're just very average and forgettable. And I think drafting Caleb Williams changed that narrative for a lot of fans. They're no longer going to be forgettable. I think anybody you talk to, anything you read is like, this guy's got the juice. This guy's got the moxie, the pedigree. He's the guy. He's the prospect. And the Bears have him on their team.
There's something that's like, it feels not real. Like I remember when the Bulls first got Lonzo and like we were like lining it up and then you're watching them like produce and you're like, this feels like you're watching a team that you've seen on, like maybe we even talked about this before, but yeah, it just feels like this isn't supposed to happen. Like you watch these other teams elsewhere and now it's happening in our house, in our team.
This isn't supposed to happen to us, right? This isn't supposed to happen to the Bears. The Bears are supposed to get the number 2 pick and some other team was going to draft Caleb, and then they would end up drafting J.J. McCarthy or Jaden Daniels or somebody that's like, this guy could be good, but there's some question marks, and we're not really sure, and you know we're missing a true number one receiver and the offensive line is shaky and like, our safeties are always hurt or something like that. That's what you're going to go into the season with, because that's typically what the Bears have had. Now they have the audacity to have a potential franchise quarterback, playmakers all around him, a defense that was beginning to really pick it up at the end of last year, that they brought most of those people back. So there's continuity there. And you're just like, okay, things are kind of making sense. Waiting for the other shoe to fall. What's going on? But I remember being excited for the Bears last offseason too, just because everybody was like, is Fields going to take that next step? But there was still question marks of like, is the offensive line good enough? He's got DJ Moore. That's great. Can Mooney be a 2? What's going on with Claypool? Like, there was still some question marks about, did he have enough pieces around him to be successful? He was really going to have to step up and lead the team for them to be successful. But what the Bears have done here is they're not relying on Caleb Williams to be a superstar for this team to be successful. They've positioned a team around him where he can figure it out and he can rely on other people to help carry him a little bit until he does become that guy. Whereas last year they were like, Justin still has to be that guy in order for us to be successful. So I think Poles really did a lot more for Caleb this offseason.
Yeah, it seems like there's like different kind of question marks and like kind of good question marks. Like, seems like last year's question marks were like uncertainty of like there's always uncertainty, right? But this seems like there's, I don't know, some like potential positivity with the questions of like, I think we're going to be pretty good, or we're going to look like competent. It's just, how does it gel? Whereas last things was like almost a question of competence. Yeah. Like, it seems like the competence question has already been answered. Like, we know these people are legit. It's just, things don't always mesh. Yeah. And that's just like what happens with the team. Last year's the last offseason was like, I don't even know if we're competent. If anybody's competent, is he going to be competent? Like, those questions
We're hoping he would be, right? He was putting up stats on a bad team. They won 3 games the year before, but he was like having 70-yard touchdown runs and highlight reels up the wazoo. And it's like, all right, now he's got a receiver. Can they gel? We think they're going to gel. It's going to be great, And now we know, like, DJ Moore can play. Keenan Allen can play. Rome Odunze led the FBS in receiving yards. We know he can play. Now, it might take some time to translate to the NFL. Yeah. DeAndre Swift can play. Komet had a great year. Like, these guys there's no guessing. Like, these guys they can play. Yeah. And the defense, you saw what they can do, and now they have another year under their belt. They're getting better. They can play. Now it's just like, the biggest question mark, honestly, is like, can Caleb play? And everything we've seen and heard so far from training camp, there's been up and downs. It hasn't been totally rosy, but unlike with Justin when he was a rookie, Caleb's getting all the first team looks. He's going up against that defense. They're not sugarcoating anything, right? He's had some picks. The offensive line has had false starts. The defense has been winning, quote unquote, training camp, but they should be. The Volts guys have all been together for a couple of years now. They're veterans. They have the same coordinator more or less with Flus, right? Whereas the Bears offense has a new coordinator, a new quarterback, some new pieces. It's going to take them a little bit more time to gel. But they're up for the challenge, right? I mean, there's been some highlights that come out of training camp with Caleb doing crazy sidearm passes.
I watched him do a throw where he was, running to the left, through to the right, and I was like, that is awesome that we have a dude that can do shit like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just training camp, right? But it's good that he's getting these reps and then he's learning. So, yeah, I mean, the audacity of hope is, why should we have hope? Every year we have hope, and it blows up in our face, right? But every team is different, and it just takes one guy to change all that. Kansas City, garbage, right? For the longest time. They were okay. Maybe they'd sneak into the playoffs, they'd win a game. Pat Mahomes shows up, and now they're like favorites every year.
You've actually made me realize that, like, someone that's like that shit makes you, that erases the history almost.
Oh, yeah.
To most, I'm sure the fans remember that. But, like, basically, like, the Kansas City Chiefs didn't really, in my memory, like, exist until Mahomes. And now they're, like, the team.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can change. You can, like.
The Buffalo Bills, laughing stock, right? Every year. And now Josh Allen shows up and, like, oh, well, we're talking about the top 5 teams. Buffalo's obviously in there, right? Like, it's like one dude.
Yeah. That is crazy, man. That's
Yeah.
very exciting. And I guess that's kind of why we started this podcast, was that sort of idea. We did an episode and it was really fun and we talked about sports and all sorts of shit. But I think like there's like maybe for the first time in a very, very long time, there's like this feeling with this team of like just something really good and exciting and a lot of potential and a lot of cool shit. And even if it is, obviously like Super Bowl is like a crazy thing to expect with a new quarterback, but just this, like, we're going to watch this team grow and do some really, really amazing stuff and like do it in a way that's like the way that an NFL team probably should grow. Like there's hopefully at least it seems like we're moving in that right direction. So that's kind of the reason behind like this.
Yeah. They haven't really ever drafted a quarterback, right? That's been really great for them. McMahon was, he was fine. I mean, he won the Super Bowl, but like he's not like a top 10 quarterback of all time, top 20 quarterback of all time. Their best quarterback, arguably Sid Luckman, way back in the day, and then Jay Cutler, who they traded for, right? Because it's like, this guy's good. Let's get him, because we can't draft anybody that's good. Like, this could be our guy. And I think that's what makes people excited. And people are excited for Fields for that same reason, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is our guy. He did it. He did it in college. Like, he's got all the tools, physically gifted, and then it blew up in our faces. And so here we are again.
The audacity.
Back at the altar, having that audacity. Let's hope. Why? Why do you deserve to hope? I don't know, man. We ain't got anything else to do, so let's hope.
Okay, maybe tell us some of the things that we should be hopeful for across the field, offense, defense.
Yeah. So, like I said, training camp's been going on. They just started doing pads. I'm actually going to training camp tomorrow.
Heyo.
Yeah, taking the fam there, so I'll have some good insights on that. But no, I think things to be hopeful for is the addition of the offensive weapons. We talked about Moore and Allen and Swift and Kmet and Everett, and they drafted Roshan Johnson last year. There's a lot. There's a lot of weapons there. They re-signed Mercedes Lewis, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but that dude's a vet and he's a pro, and he's going to be a good locker room presence. He's going to help Caleb a lot.
I read as a sort of to that. I read the headline and 2 lines after that said that NFL players have said that Keenan Allen is one of the best players in the league, which is another exciting thing to have on a team. And who knows who wrote that article? I don't remember the website. I can't cite my sources, but I was like, I had him on my fantasy team either last or the year before, and that dude's dope. And like, it's fun to have cool people on your team.
It's fun to have great people on your team, right? The people that have done it before. I mean, we were trotting out like, Jesus, Dontrell Inman was like one of our leading receivers one year, and you don't even know who that is. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous, the crap we tried to pull. And now we've got like legit dudes. And then Roma Dunze, right? They could have very easily taken the best defensive player in the draft at 9, which would have made sense, right? Like, oh, we got Caleb. Let's get another pass rusher opposite of Montez Sweat, because that's kind of still a hole. And we could have had our pick of like Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, guys that were there that would have made sense and nobody would have had an eye. But Pulse is like, no, we need to score points. That's how you win. And so he took the leading receiver in college football last year with Roma Dunze. And you're just like, damn, man, this guy, like, he's going to do it the way he thinks he should do it and not just, like, play it safe. And I kind of like that about him.
Yeah.
He kind of gets it. So, Keenan Allen's only here for 1 year. But if he does leave, the Bears get a compensatory pick, which I think would be a 3rd-round pick. So they traded a 4th to get him. And if they don't re-sign him and he leaves, they'll get a compensatory 3rd, I think, back. So it's almost like, all right, it's a win-win-win kind of across the board.
Yeah.
So,
and he signed a 1 year just because?
Well, we traded for him, so that was LeBron's contract.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah. Another thing that I found out today is, who Tory Taylor is?
Yeah.
So Bears drafted him, punter, out of Iowa, which people are like, all right, interesting. But
Punt God.
Punt God, right? We talked about nicknames for him last week,
yeah.
right? So apparently, Poles can use some sort of international player designation on him. So he doesn't count against our 90-man roster currently. So he can bring in another player to evaluate while having Tory Taylor there, because he doesn't count against the initial roster at the moment. Which I was like, wow, I didn't know if you knew that before going in, but that's kind of cool.
There are Like, I feel like there's like all these, like you hear about people making like smart financial moves, and it's like if you can figure out what the right tax things are, you can maneuver a lot. And so all these things seem like there are ways to not circumvent the rules, but like actually understand the ins and outs and then use it to your advantage.
Yeah.
And we now, like stuff like that. It's like, I've never heard of that.
yeah.
Basically, this player like kind of then doesn't exist on your roster as a hit. Like,
Right.
It's like a smart sort of accounting, like whatever, like that's nice that we have that gentleman making the decisions on the future of our team.
Yeah, and like I don't know if he knew the Keenan Allen compensatory pick thing ahead of time, but like that's also one of those things. It's like, wow, this guy's like thinking ahead, and I think that's kind of cool and refreshing that we have somebody that's not, because Ryan Pace seemed very knee jerk. He was always trying to like, we can win now. We just got to like trade for some stuff, and we'll figure it. We'll kick the can down the road. Worry about the cap stuff later. And we were always in like cap hell, or things didn't work out, or like if something blew up in your face, you're just kind of screwed. Where Poles, I feel like, leaves himself some outs. With like Claypool was like kind of dead money, and he just kind of cut it. Nate Davis, who's the guard on the offensive line, is kind of looking like to be a bad signing. He's hurt again. He's not practicing. So right now the Bears' offensive line is a little bit shaky. They got two guys competing at center, Coleman Shelton and Ryan Bates. And right now they're having Bates play guard and Shelton play center because Nate Davis is out. So there's some shuffling there, right? And you don't want it to be kind of up in the air, especially with a rookie quarterback, going into the season. So I don't know if he's going to cut bait with Nate Davis. There's some cap hit there.
Okay.
But he still has some holes to fill, but they're not like, it's not like 7 or 8 holes, right? Where you're like, I hope this guy, it's like 3 or 4, 2 or 3, right? And you need a defensive end. You probably need to figure out your offensive line situation, what that's going to look like. But, I think you probably could use some more secondary help. But other than that, man, he's looking pretty good. The team's looking pretty good. If Caleb Williams can hit, it's going to be a fun year.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to that tomorrow. Kind of seeing his vibe, not just the plays that you see on social media, but like, how does he look in between throws? If he has a bad throw, what's his body language look like, right? Is he staring down his receiver? Is he like clapping in his face? Is he cussing him out? Is it letting him bother him for the next rep? That's the kind of stuff I want to look out for, to see what his mental makeup is.
Yeah.
I mean, for everything you read is like, he's got a very short memory. He makes a mistake, he moves on, right? He like corrects it, wants to learn, but he moves, that doesn't let him affect him. That's the kind of stuff I'm going to look out for, when I'm out there.
Yeah. Well, shit. Okay. So, any sort of other things to look out for kind of going into the season? We've talked mostly about the offense. Obviously, that's kind of like the sort of early pressing, like...
I would look out for how Matt Eberflus does. So
over the course of
maybe like the McCaskey's never fired a coach midway through the season, and I don't think Eberflus is going to be the first one. He's actually got the highest odds for coach of the year right now, so you can put some money on that if you want to. But there's still people that speculate he's on the hot seat. Now, Ryan Poles has always been supportive of him, so there's no indication internally that he's on the hot seat, but he's a defensive guy with a new quarterback. That's always kind of shaky, right? Like, kind of like, we should get an offensive guru in here to help him out. So I would look at Eberflus. He improved once he took over the defensive play calling. Defense improved, so that really helped his stock. But if you remember last year, there was a lot of games that they were winning in the fourth quarter that they ended up losing.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of mistakes there, a lot of blame to go around, but the head coach at the end of the day owns that, right? So looking at how he's managing those late game situations, has he improved a little bit from last year in terms of his play calling, his personnel, how he's reacting to a team maybe catching up? Is he panicking? I would keep an eye on Matt Eberflus. That's something to watch too, because the last thing you want to do for a young quarterback is constantly change his play callers, his coaching staff. It just like sets them back. So the Bears really, as much as they need Caleb to be successful, it'd be really helpful for them to have Matt Eberflus be successful too, so they can keep that continuity together for a long time.
Yeah. Okay. So our plan over the course of the season is to do this every week, break down games, break down Hard Knocks, break down summer going to training camp, all sorts of stuff, Bears-centric, different stories, all sorts of good stuff. We look forward to sort of following this team as they sort of go over the course of the season. I think there's going to be a lot of like very, very, I don't know, hopeful stuff to look forward to.
Yeah, it should be fun. We'll have that audacity, and hopefully we keep our high spirits throughout the season. And by week 6, we're not just getting on here yelling at each other.
Our friendship
This is all your fault.
because we believed you, asshole. Any other final thoughts? Anything you want to leave us with as we go into? You're going to training camp. We got Hard Knocks. We got a game.
It's
a lot to
very
look forward
exciting.
to.
Very exciting. Next couple weeks, I'll have a report on training camp. I'm probably going to put an article out on bearstalk.com from the training camp, so check that out. Just put some pictures, videos, what training camp's like for those that want to go or will go this year, just like what to look out for. And then, we'll be looking at the preseason games. The Hall of Fame game is this week, and then Hard Knocks debuts next week. So lots of stuff to talk about. There'll be a lot of content.
Dang. All right, buddy. Talk to you next week.
All right, thanks.